The New York mayor election less now than 2 months away, and joining us now is independent candidate for mayor and a former New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo. I want to thank you for joining us, and want to also just say we've asked some of the other candidates on the broadcast as well. So in terms of fair and balanced, we want to have everybody on the broadcast. Where are we in terms of when you think about your path to winning? If you think that there is a path. We look at Poly Market all the time. I don't know if that's a good thing to look at or not. And right now, Mamdani would still be at 81%. You're at 17%. Adams 2%. There's a question mark about whether Adams stays in. Want to get into all of that? What happens to Sliwa? How this all happens?
Yeah. Well, first, happy anniversary.
Thank you
to both of you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the cake. We brought some cake.
Yes. And to Joe. This is a much different race than the primary, and this is an evolving race. I think you're going to see a lot happen between now and Election Day. And I feel very good because it's going to come down to a one-on-one choice. It's going to be me versus Mamdani. And that is all...
Because Eric Adams is saying he's not dropping out.
Well, we'll see what happens with Eric Adams, but in reality, for voters, there are going to be two viable candidates who can win. It's going to be me and Mamdani. And you could not have a more stark choice because Mamdani is a socialist. I am a Democrat. And we haven't even gotten to the discussion of what a socialist really means in New York. And he is a radical socialist, anti-business, anti-public safety, et cetera. And that is not what New York City is all about, right? This is a business capital. We're not anti-business. Right. And it's going to be a very stark choice.
I want to get into some of the things that he has said, and even maybe some of his positions that have changed to try to become either more pro-business or less socialist, if you will. But my question to you is, look, some of the polls suggest if you could get down to 2, that maybe you'd have a real shot here. The question about that, though, is how you get there. I know that you've talked to Eric Adams. You've asked him to get out. I know he's asked you to get out. Sliwa's still in there. There's now headlines that President Trump, may try to offer Adams a job to get him out of the role. There's been conversations about whether some of the real estate executives in New York want to offer Eric Adams a job. By the way, what do you think of that unto itself and what that says to other New Yorkers?
Yeah, well, I don't even know what that means, Andrew. I know that you have an alliance between President Trump and Eric Adams. Eric Adams would be in jail, but for President Trump.
Mamdani says that you are President Trump's choice.
Yeah, except that's ludicrous, right? If you're a Republican, you are praying for Mamdani to win. If Mamdani wins, they can use that against the Democrats all across the country. Mamdani wins, they'll say the Democratic Party has been taken over by socialists. And here's the position of the socialists. They're against business. They would raise taxes. Everything is free. Disband the police, legalize prostitution, abolish jails. They would win all sorts of seats here in New York with that. I believe they pick up congressional seats. They might pick up the governorship to control Mamdani.
So these reports that the president would like to see you win and would like to offer the current mayor a job, you think are inaccurate?
No, I think they're separate things, Andrew. I think you do have a President Trump-Adams alliance. The president, literally, as I said, Adams would be in jail, in my opinion, but for President Trump. If President Trump can give him a job and a graceful exit, and if he couldn't get him confirmed, I think he would do that just on a personal level. That's different than what the Republicans want. The Republicans would be incompetent if they didn't want Mamdani, because they would be right in saying the socialist wing, the far-left socialist wing, has taken over the Democratic Party in New York City.
Right. For you to win, though, do you think that he has to drop out and Sliwa has to drop out and they have to endorse you, or they just have to get out of the race?
No, I don't think it works the way you suggest. I think it practically comes down to a two-person race, right?
Okay.
I was just in a primary. There were candidates who were polling at 8%, wind up at 1%.
Right.
Candidates polling at 14, wind up at 3%. Why? Because they weren't viable. It was really a two-person race, and people don't want to waste their vote. This is going to be me versus Mamdani. I'm going to be talking about the economy and jobs and opportunity, and that's what New York is all about. And how do we bring businesses back? Because that is the issue. Unemployment rate is problematic here.
Right.
The deficit is problematic. New York is opportunity. So how do we bring jobs back? And Mamdani's message is the exact opposite. He is a socialist. He's against capitalism. He's against the police. He would disband them, et cetera. And that doesn't sell, but that's the stark choice.
He seems to have walked back some of what you would describe as his socialist tendencies. He had obviously made comments back in 2020, for example, around defunding the police. He now suggests that that's not the case. What do you make about some of the comments that he had made on Twitter or other places in years past that would clearly fall into these categories, but today is saying something different?
It's not years past, and you can't take back what comes out of your mouth on a videotape. You can't take back the tweets. Now, he's in the general election, and he's trying to modify himself, modify his positions. But you can't do a 180-degree turn. You can't transform the essence of who you are. His words are, and they're written, and it's a socialist charter. It is government should control the means of production. There should be no private property ownership. I mean, this is radical stuff.
There should be no private ownership?
No private ownership of real estate. You couldn't own your own home. The American dream.
This is on his plank? This is on the Democratic Socialist plank?
This is the Democratic Socialist charter.
Right.
Charter that you signed.
So interestingly, and I don't know what to make of it. From what I've read, his spokesman, at least, have said repeatedly, at least recently, that his plank is different or not exactly the same as the Democratic Socialist plank.
They've been a little hazy.
Even though they've signed.
Yeah, they've been hazy on where they separate from it and where they don't.
Yeah, a little hazy. They've been totally inconsistent. He is a Democratic Socialist.
I'm not here to defend him. I'm just suggesting this is the other side of what we're hearing from their, group.
Well, what they would like to say is, forget everything I said, and forget everything the Democratic Socialist platform says, and forget the Democratic Socialist convention and charter, and forget everything. And the only thing that matters is what I have on my website today. Yeah, that would be nice, but life doesn't work that way, right? He is the banner carrier for the socialists. And that's what this race is. It's Democrats, and I am a Democrat. My father was a Democrat, worked with Bill Clinton. The Democratic agenda versus the socialist agenda. And the socialist agenda is not viable, especially in New York City. Anti-business doesn't work in New York City. I don't know if you notice, we don't do a lot of farming here, We're about business. And he's trying to run away from it, which, yes, of course, but it's not going to work.
What would you do differently than Mayor Adams is doing right now? I know this ultimately is going to be a race where somebody's going up against Mamdani, and that's the thing we have to focus on. But look, he's doing things where he's basically running against Trump at this point. He is talking about how he's not going to allow President Trump, or he's got a big plan, a big fight if President Trump were to bring people here like he's done in Chicago, like he has done, or like he's threatened to do in Chicago, like he's done in L.A. Where do you differentiate yourself from President Trump? Where do you differentiate yourself from Eric Adams?
Yeah. First, on President Trump, as I said, I believe the Republicans would love to have Mamdani win. It serves their politics. It would hurt the Democratic Party nationwide, because the socialists would have taken over the Democratic Party. Mamdani loves to pivot against Trump. If Mamdani wins, let's just call it Mayor Trump. He would take over New York City. He already is moving to take over New York, right? He took over Penn Station. He's talking about taking over 9/11. He has said if Mayor Mamdani becomes a reality, he would have to come in to protect public safety.
So you think the National Guard shows up?
More than the National Guard.
My understanding is it's harder for him to bring the National Guard into New York City, given that some of the state laws and other things, than it is, for example, in Washington, D.C. Is that right?
There would be a legal challenge on the National Guard. But forget the National Guard. I was in the federal government. I was in Bill Clinton's cabinet. You control all the funding. You can stop the health funding, the housing funding, et cetera. The federal government has phenomenal power. And he would de facto take over New York City. I have no doubt.
Right.
And Donald Trump does love New York. This is still home.
Right. So this cuts both ways in a very interesting way for some New Yorkers, I think. There's a whole bunch of New Yorkers that are not fans of President Trump, and they want to see a Mamdani or somebody rallying against the president. And there's others that don't want to see the National Guard running around the streets, but feel that they're being, therefore, held hostage. What do you think of that argument?
Well, you're right. It is conflicting. But the question is, who is in the best position to protect New York from Trump for those people? And the answer is me. I was governor. He was president. We went through COVID together. We have done battle royale for years.
So what is your relationship with him like now?
I think if we can avoid a fight, we would avoid a fight, right? We have both engaged. I know his right hook hurts, and he knows my right hook hurts, right? So if we can avoid an engagement, we would. When I was governor, he sent the National Guard into 20 cities, not New York, right? On the other hand, if President Trump can be helpful to New York City, I would work with President Trump.
What happens to Curtis Sliwa? Does he have to get out of the race, too, for the math to make sense?
I think people will discount non-viable candidates. When you get down to Election Day, and it's either Andrew or Becky, I think they say, Joe's not here, I'm not going to count Joe. I think what's going to happen is, in practice, they're going to say either Cuomo's going to win or Mamdani's going to win. I'm going to pick one of those, and I'm not going to waste my vote on the other candidate who's not really viable.
And from a technical perspective, to get their name off the ballot, what is the last final day that they have? Or they're still there?
That's under contention, but it's the 9/11, literally.
So we're almost there.
That's this. Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah,
this week.
no, we're there.
Oh.
Governor Cuomo, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having
Good to
me.
see you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
We'll continue this conversation.